cage was iron cold enough to burn skin even through fabric. Cassandra Graythorne had stopped feeling her fingertips an hour ago. Around her, 4 other Omegas huddled together, their breathing shallow with terror. The youngest, barely 17, wept silently into her hands. The oldest, maybe 30, stared at nothing, with eyes that had already surrendered to death. Cassandra felt neither of these things. She felt the weight of 8 years pressing down on her shoulders. 8 years of planning, 8 years of pretending, 8 years of waiting for exactly this moment. The blood moon hung fat and crimson over the forbidden forest, painting everything in shades of rust and shadow. 300 wolves from the silver moon pack ringed the clearing, their eyes reflecting torchlight like scattered coins. They had come to witness tradition. They had come to watch Omegas die. You are going to die tonight, Cassandra. The voice belonged to Beta Garrick, though she would not learn his true loyalty for weeks yet. He gripped the cage bar's knuckles white, playing his role with practiced cruelty. You know that do not you, 23 years old and still no wolf, still defective, still worthless. The crowd murmured approval. Cassandra kept her eyes down, kept her breathing steady, kept her wolf buried so deep that even she sometimes forgot it existed. The great hunt does not care that you are pathetic, Garrick continued, his voice carrying across the clearing. The beasts in those woods will tear you apart just the same. Laughter rippled through the assembled pack. Cassandra had heard that laughter her entire life. It no longer had the power to wound her. She raised her head just enough to see the forbidden forest beyond the torches. Black trees stood like broken teeth against the red moon, their branches twisted into shapes that seemed to reach and grasp. Somewhere in those depths lived creatures older than memory. The White Death, the Shadow Stalkers, feral packs that had forgotten they were ever wolves at all. And somewhere buried in the darkness between those ancient trunks lay the escape route Cassandra had mapped 3 years ago, using her father's hidden scrolls. Every trail, every water source, every cave within 50 miles committed to memory the way other girls memorize poetry or prayers. Beta Garrick stepped back from the cage and addressed the crowd. The ritual begins at Moon Peak. The Omegas enter the forest first. They run deep, draw out the ancient horrors, and if they are very lucky, he paused for effect. They die quickly. More laughter. Cassandra studied the tree line and calculated distances. From the cage to the forest edge, 200 yards of open ground. From the forest edge to the first creek, crossing half a mile through dense undergrowth. From the creek to the cave network, her father had marked on his maps another 2 miles northeast, assuming she could navigate by starlight alone. She could. She had been preparing for this since she was 15 years old. After the Omegas flush out the beasts, Garrick continued, our true warriors enter. They will face the horrors with courage. They will return with trophies. They will prove that Silver Moon Pack breeds strength, not weakness. The pack howled approval. Cassandra closed her eyes and let the sound wash over her. She thought of her father dead 8 years now. Murdered, though the pack had called it an accident. He had been the pack cartographer, a quiet man who read weather patterns and cloud formations and mapped territories with such precision that neighboring packs had offered gold for his services. The memory came unbidden, sharp as broken glass. She is 15. Her father grips her shoulders, his hands trembling. The attic is dark except for a single candle. Below, her mother is entertaining guests, her laughter bright and false. Listen to me, Cass. Listen carefully. Your wolf is not absent. Your wolf is powerful. Too powerful. If the council knows what you are, they will kill you or control you, and I cannot say which would be worse. I do not understand, Papa. You are Moon-blessed child, the bloodline they thought extinct, the power they hunted down and slaughtered 200 years ago because they could not dominate it. He pulls a silver knife from his belt, presses it into her hands. The metal is warm from his body heat. Hide your wolf. Every day, every moment, hide it so deep that even you forget it exists. Promise me. I promise. If they discover you before you are ready, run. Use the maps. Follow the routes I showed you. His voice breaks. And when you are strong enough, come back and burn their corruption to ash. Make them pay for what they have done, what they are still doing. What have they done, Papa? But he only shakes his head and pulls her close. She can feel his heart hammering against her ear, can smell fear on him, acrid and wrong. 3 days later, they find her father at the bottom of a ravine. Broken neck, shattered spine. The pack healers declare it a tragic fall. Cassandra sees the bruises on his knuckles when they lay him out for burial. She knows what a fight looks like. She knows what murder looks like. She opened her eyes and focused on the present. The blood moon had climbed higher. Around the clearing, warriors began checking weapons and adjusting armor. The Omega beside her, the young one, finally lifted her tear-streaked face. Do you think it will hurt? The girl whispered. When they catch us. Cassandra looked at her fully for the first time. Blonde hair, green eyes, 17 at most. Too young to be thrown into darkness as bait for monsters. Too young to die screaming while warriors claimed glory. "What is your name?" Cassandra asked quietly. "Mira." "Mira, when we enter that forest, stay close to me. Do exactly what I say when I say it without question." "Can you do that?" Hope flickered in the girl's eyes. "You have a plan. I have been planning for 8 years." Before Mira could respond, a horn blew long and low across the clearing. The crowd fell silent. Every wolf turned toward the northern approach, where the trees opened onto a wide trail. They came in formation, 50 warriors in black leather and silver ceremonial chains. Torchlight caught on polished steel and burnished metal. These were not Silver Moon Pack wolves. These warriors moved with a precision that spoke of royal training of discipline enforced by something greater than local pack law. At their center rode a man who made the moonlight seem pale by comparison. Cassandra had never seen Alpha King Theon Blackwood in person. Few had. He ruled the northern territories from a stone fortress 300 miles north, and his visits to outlying packs were rare enough to spawn legends. They said he had killed his first challenger at 19. They said he trusted no one after his own father's council had tried to poison him. They said his wolf was black as midnight and twice the size of any normal alpha. Looking at him now, Cassandra believed all of it. He stood 6.5 feet tall, even without the benefit of his mount. Broad shoulders carried a frame built for violence, all hard muscle and coiled strength. Dark hair fell past his collar, longer than fashion, dictated longer than practicality suggested. But it was his eyes that arrested her attention, burning gold that seemed to cut through darkness and pretense. With equal ease, scanning the clearing like a predator assessing prey and finding it wanting. Those eyes found the cages, found the Omegas huddled inside, found Cassandra. She felt the weight of his gaze like a physical thing. For 3 heartbeats, they stared at each other across 200 yards of firelit ground, and something shifted in the air between them. Something old and patient and utterly certain. Then Alpha Raymond of the Silver Moon Pack stepped forward, breaking the moment. He was old now, his muzzle gray, his movements stiff with age and too much rich food. But tradition demanded his presence, and he played his role with the pomposity of small men given small powers. "Your Majesty," Raymond said, bowing so low his forehead nearly touched his knees. "You honor us beyond measure. It has been 30 years since the royal court attended our great hunt." Theon dismounted in one fluid motion. He did not bow in return. Kings did not bow. "I came because I heard rumors, Raymond." His voice carried effortlessly across the clearing, deep and rough like gravel grinding beneath stone. "Rumors that Silver Moon Pack has been sending the weak into the forest first, using them to flush out prey for stronger hunters. I wanted to see if such cowardice was true." The silence that followed was absolute. Cassandra watched Raymond's face flush crimson, watched his jaw work soundlessly. Around them, the Silver Moon Pack stood frozen, torn between pride in their alpha and terror of their king. "It is tradition, Your Majesty," Raymond managed finally. "The hunt requires bait. It has always been so, since before my grandfather's time." "Tradition." Theon repeated the word like it tasted rotten. "You hide behind tradition to excuse your weakness. In my pack, every wolf proves strength through their own courage, not by sacrificing those weaker than themselves to make themselves appear brave." He moved toward the cages, his warriors falling into formation behind him. Cassandra's heart hammered against her ribs. She could smell him now, pain and smoke, and something wild that made her wolf stir in the depths where she kept it chained. The other Omega shrank back. Mira whimpered. But Cassandra stayed exactly where she was, watching this man who ruled a kingdom stride toward her prison as if he owned the very ground beneath her feet, which legally he did. Theon stopped 3 feet from the cage. Up close, exhaustion lined his face despite his youth. Blood still darkened his knuckles. But his gaze held steady, assessing her with the focus of someone accustomed to reading threats in shadows. "Look at me," he said. The command was not shouted. It did not need to be. Power rolled off him in waves, the kind of alpha dominance that could force submission from lesser wolves without raising his voice. Cassandra lifted her head slowly and met his gaze directly. She saw surprise flicker across his features, quickly masked. Omegas did not meet alpha eyes. Omega certainly did not meet the eyes of the Alpha King himself. But Cassandra had spent 8 years pretending to be weak. She was tired of pretending. "What is your name?" Theon asked. His voice had gentled slightly, though it still carried enough authority to make strong wolves kneel. "Cassandra Graythorn, Your Majesty." Her voice came out steady, despite the fear coiling in her stomach, despite the hope she refused to acknowledge, despite the wolf inside her recognizing something in him that she could not name. Something flickered in his expression again. This time it lasted longer. He inhaled deeply, nostrils flaring, and Cassandra realized with sick certainty that he was scenting her, reading her the way wolves read each other through chemistry and instinct older than language. Graythorn, he repeated quietly, and Cassandra caught the faintest emphasis on the name, like he knew it, like it meant something. And you have volunteered for this hunt, Cassandra Graythorn. She almost laughed. The sound would have been bitter. No, Your Majesty, I was chosen. Chosen. His jaw tightened. How convenient. And what crime did you commit to deserve this honor? Before Cassandra could answer, Raymond stepped closer, anxiety making him bold. She is defective, Your Majesty. 23 years old and she has never shifted, never felt her wolf. She contributes nothing to the pack. The hunt is an honorable way for her to serve before she dies. Theon's head turned toward Raymond with predatory slowness. Defective. Yes, Your Majesty. The healers examined her when she was young. They declared her broken. Without a wolf, she is less than Omega. She is nothing. The king's expression went absolutely flat. Cassandra had seen that look before on wolves moments before they killed. I see. And you determined that nothing is all she could ever be. The healers are not here. Theon's voice dropped to something barely above a whisper, but it cut through Raymond's explanation like a blade through silk. You are here. You made this choice. You put a 23-year-old woman in a cage and sentenced her to death by terror because she does not fit your definition of useful. Raymond opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Your Majesty, I only followed tradition. Enough. The word cracked like a whip. Theon turned back to the cage and Cassandra saw calculation moving behind his eyes, saw decision crystallizing. I am purchasing this Omega. Name your price. The clearing erupted. Wolves shouted questions, objections, confusion. Raymond's face went from red to purple. Your Majesty, you cannot simply take a member of my pack without negotiation, without offering proper compensation. I just offered to buy her. That is negotiation. Theon pulled a leather purse from his belt and tossed it at Raymond's feet. It landed with a heavy thunk that suggested substantial weight. 100 gold crowns, 10 times what any Omega is worth in your economy of weakness. Take it and be grateful I do not demand reparations for the insult of making me witness this farce. 100 gold crowns. Cassandra's breath stopped. That was enough to feed a small pack for a year. Enough to buy land livestock weapons. Enough to make Raymond's humiliation slightly more palatable. The old alpha bent and retrieved the purse with shaking hands. He did not count the coins. He did not need to. Every wolf present could smell the gold, could sense the small fortune Theon had just paid for a supposedly worthless Omega. I accept your generous offer, Your Majesty, Raymond said through gritted teeth. Theon gestured to one of his warriors, a massive beta with scars crossing his face like a roadmap of violence. Garrick, release her. Cassandra's head snapped up. Garrick was Silver Moonpack's beta, the one who had shoved her into this cage, who had called her pathetic. He could not be. The scarred warrior produced a key and unlocked the cage with practiced efficiency. He met Cassandra's eyes for the briefest instant, and she saw something there that froze her understanding of everything she thought she knew. Recognition, apology, alliance. And beneath that, the same careful calculation she had seen in her father's eyes when he was hiding something important. Out, Garrick said gruffly, playing his role. You belong to the king now. Cassandra's legs barely held her as she climbed from the cage. 8 years of planning had not included this possibility. 8 years of preparation had not prepared her for salvation arriving in the form of an alpha king who moved like violence and smelled like winter storms. She stumbled. Theon's hand shot out and caught her elbow, steadying her with a grip that was firm but careful. The contact sent electricity racing up her arm. Her wolf surged against its chains, demanding to be acknowledged, to be released to answer this male who radiated power like heat from flame. She crushed it back down. Not yet. Not here. Not with 300 witnesses and a forest full of horrors waiting. You will not be entering the forest tonight, Theon announced, still gripping her elbow. This wolf is under my protection now. Raymond's control finally snapped. Your Majesty, this is highly irregular. The council will hear of this. Questions will be raised. Let them raise questions. Theon's smile was all teeth and no warmth. I am the king. I answer to no council. But if you insist on compensation beyond the fortune I just handed you. He released Cassandra's elbow and stepped toward Raymond. We can discuss it, privately, after your great hunt, when I have had time to consider whether sending wolves to Baum as bait for monsters violates Northern Alliance law regarding the treatment of pack members. Every wolf in the clearing understood the threat. Northern Alliance law superseded pack tradition. If Theon decided to pursue charges, Raymond could lose his territory, his title, his freedom. The old Alpha's face went pale. No need, Your Majesty. No need at all. Your gold is more than sufficient. How fortunate. Theon turned back to Cassandra and lowered his voice so only she could hear. Can you walk? Yes, Your Majesty. Then walk beside me. Keep your head up. You are under royal protection now. No one will touch you. He offered his arm like she was a lady of the court rather than a caged Omega bought for gold. Cassandra stared at it for 3 full heartbeats before placing her hand carefully on his forearm. The muscle beneath was like iron wrapped in leather. They walked through the clearing together, a king and a purchased Omega, and Cassandra felt 300 pairs of eyes drilling into her back. She heard whispers spreading like wildfire through dry grass. Why would he buy her? What does he want with a defective? What use is she to an alpha king? She wondered the same things, but she kept her chin up and her steps steady, and she did not look back at the cage she had finally escaped. Theon's warriors closed around them in a protective formation. Garrick, the scarred beta she now realized was not what he seemed, fell into step behind them. They moved through the silver moon pack like a knife through butter, and not one wolf dared block their path. The royal camp had been established half a mile from the clearing, far enough to provide privacy, but close enough to respond to threats. Black tents formed a precise circle around a central fire. Guards stood at compass points, alert and professional. This was not the casual chaos of pack gathering. This was military precision. Garrick guided Cassandra toward a smaller tent at the eastern edge. Stay here, do not leave. Do not speak to anyone except the king or myself. The great hunt begins at Moon Peak, and things will grow chaotic. Remain inside until summoned. Who are you really? Cassandra asked quietly. Garrick's scarred face revealed nothing. A soldier who follows orders. Get some rest. You are safe now. Then he was gone, leaving her alone in a tent that was larger and more comfortable than anywhere she had slept in 8 years. A bedroll lay ready, thick furs piled high. A basin of clean water sat on a small table beside bread-dried meat and cheese. Real food. More food than she typically saw in a week. Cassandra stood in the center of the tent and tried to process what had just happened. She had planned to escape during the hunt, had mapped routes, cached supplies, rehearsed scenarios until they played smooth as songs in her mind. She had been ready to run into the darkness and trust her skills to keep her alive. Instead, the Alpha King had purchased her freedom for 100 gold crowns, had declared her under his protection, had looked at her like she was something other than worthless. Why? The question circled her mind like a wolf circling prey. She had no answers, only instinct. Only the strange certainty that when their eyes had met across the clearing, something had shifted in the fabric of the world. She forced herself to drink water, to eat small amounts of bread and meat. Her stomach, unused to such richness, cramped with the effort. Outside, she could hear the sounds of the camp preparing for the hunt. Warriors checking weapons, horses being readied, the low rumble of male voices discussing strategy. And beneath it all, the distant howl of something deep in the forbidden forest. Something old and hungry and patient. Cassandra wrapped herself in the furs and tried to sleep. She failed. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw burning gold looking at her like she mattered. Like she was worth 100 gold crowns in a king's protection. Like she was worth saving. The thought was dangerous. More dangerous than the forbidden forest, more dangerous than the hunt, more dangerous than anything she had faced in 8 years of careful planning. Because Cassandra had learned long ago that hope was a luxury she could not afford. But hope crept in anyway, persistent as morning light, impossible to extinguish completely. Outside, the blood moon climbed toward its peak. Inside her chest, her wolf stirred restlessly, testing the chains that held it drawn to something it sensed in the darkness beyond the tent walls. Cassandra pressed her hand flat against her sternum, feeling her heart hammer beneath bone and flesh. Not yet, she whispered to the wolf that had been hidden for so long. Not yet, but soon. The wolf settled, patient as stone, waiting for the moment when hiding would no longer be necessary, when dawn would finally break. Hours passed. The sounds of the hunt faded as warriors entered the forest. Cassandra dozed fitfully, jerking awake at every distant howl, every snap of breaking branches. She was not meant to be here. She was meant to be running through darkness, trusting maps and instinct to guide her to freedom. Instead, she was in a royal tent under a king's protection, safe and terrified in equal measure. She woke fully to the sound of voices outside. Dawn light filtered gray through the tent walls. The hunt had ended. Warriors were returning. The tent flap opened. Garrick stood silhouetted against the morning, his expression unreadable. The king wants to see you. Come. Cassandra rose, smoothed her ragged clothes as best she could, and followed him into the dawn. The camp was organized chaos. Bloodied warriors stumbled to healers' tents. Others stood in groups, their voices raised in excitement or argument. She saw kills being dragged in creatures with too many teeth and not enough resemblance to natural wolves. Garrick led her to the largest tent at the camp's center. Two guards stood at the entrance, both watching her with expressions somewhere between curiosity and suspicion. They stepped aside without comment. Inside, Theon stood with his back to the entrance, washing blood from his hands in a basin. He had removed his shirt, and Cassandra could see the landscape of scars across his shoulders and spine. Evidence of a life spent fighting. Evidence of survival against odds that would have killed lesser wolves. "Leave us," Theon said without turning. His voice carried the same absolute authority she remembered from the clearing. Garrick departed immediately, closing the tent flap behind him. Cassandra stood frozen, unsure what to do, where to look, what was expected of her. Theon finished washing and turned to face her, drying his hands on a cloth. Weariness etched lines around his mouth that had not been visible in torchlight. Fresh blood stained the bandage wrapped around his left forearm, but that penetrating look remained sharp, focused entirely on her. "Did you sleep?" he asked. The question was so normal, so unexpected, that Cassandra needed a moment to respond. "Some, Your Majesty. Thank you for your kindness." It was not kindness. He tossed the cloth aside and moved closer, though he maintained careful distance. "Do you know why I came to Silver Moon Pact tonight?" She shook her head silently. 3 months ago, my spies reported unusual council activity around this territory. They were watching someone, waiting for something to awaken. When I learned about the great hunt, about the supposedly defective Omega they caged, he paused, studying her reaction. "I knew. Your scent confirmed it the moment I saw you. You were never broken, Cassandra. You were hidden, and the council was waiting to kill you the moment you stopped hiding." Cassandra's breath caught. "You came here for me. I came here to investigate corruption. I found you." His voice softened. "And the moment I saw you, the moment I scented you, my wolf recognized something I have been searching for without knowing I was searching." She knew what he was implying, knew what those words meant in their world, but it was impossible. She was nobody. "That is impossible," she whispered. "I am nobody. I am broken. I do not even have a wolf." Theon moved closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his skin, close enough to see silver flecks in those burning eyes. "Perhaps you do not have a wolf yet, but I think you have something else, something older, something that has been sleeping, waiting for the right moment to wake." Before Cassandra could respond, before she could process the impossibility of what he was suggesting, a commotion erupted outside the tent. Shouting, running footsteps. The clash of steel on steel. The tent flap flew open and one of the guards burst in, his face pale with terror. "Your Majesty, you need to come now. Something is coming out of the forest. Something..." He swallowed hard. Something that should not exist. Theon grabbed his shirt and pulled it on in one motion. "Where the eastern perimeter. Your Majesty, it is massive, white. The men are preparing to engage, but tell them to hold position. No one attacks until I give the order." Theon turned to Cassandra. His expression was grim. "Stay close to me. Do not run. Do not speak. And whatever happens, do not be afraid." Then he was moving and Cassandra had no choice but to follow. They ran through the camp warriors, scrambling to form defensive lines. Cassandra's heart hammered as she struggled to keep pace with Theon's longer stride. They burst through the eastern perimeter into the gray dawn light beyond, and she saw it. The creature was massive, 12 feet at the shoulder, built like a wolf but scaled up to mythological proportions. Its fur was white as fresh snow, pristine, despite the blood staining its muzzle. Its eyes burned gold, molten and ancient and utterly alien. This was the White Death, the terror of the Forbidden Forest. The beast that had killed more wolves than any other predator in living memory. And it was walking directly toward the camp, directly toward her. Warriors raised spears, forming a wall of steel between the creature and the tents. Someone shouted orders. Someone else began to pray. But the beast did not slow. It did not deviate from its path. It simply kept walking, those golden eyes fixed on something beyond the wall of weapons, beyond the warriors, beyond everything except the spot where Cassandra stood beside the king. "Hold," Theon commanded, and his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Do not throw those spears." But fear had already taken root. Survival instinct overrode training. The first spear flew, then another, then a dozen more, all aimed at the creature's massive chest. The White Death moved faster than anything that size should be able to move. It surged forward, closing the distance in heartbeats, and Theon moved too, pulling Cassandra behind him, shielding her with his body. But the creature did not attack them. Instead, it positioned itself directly in front of Cassandra, placing its massive body between her and the warriors. Between her and the spears that were still flying through the air. The weapons bounced off its thick hide, barely leaving marks. The beast lowered its head and released a rumbling growl that made the ground vibrate beneath their feet. It was protecting her. This ancient, terrifying creature that should have torn her apart was protecting her. "Lower your weapons," Theon roared. "Lower them now!" The warriors obeyed, though their confusion was obvious. They stood frozen, spears lowered, but still ready, eyes wide, as they stared at the impossible scene before them. The White Death standing guard over a defective Omega like she was something precious, something worth defending with its life. Theon moved slowly, carefully positioning himself where the beast could see him without threatening it. "Easy," he said softly, the way one might speak to a frightened animal. "I mean her no harm. She is under my protection." The creature's golden eyes shifted to him, assessing, judging. For a moment, Cassandra thought it might attack anyway, might decide that even a king was a threat that needed to be eliminated. But then it did something that made her heart stop. It lowered its massive head and pressed its muzzle against her hand. The gesture was almost gentle, almost familiar, like greeting an old friend after a long absence. Cassandra felt warmth spread through her palm where they touched. Felt something inside her chest crack open like an egg, like a door that had been locked her entire life was suddenly swinging wide. And then she heard it, a voice in her mind, ancient and powerful and utterly foreign, yet somehow deeply familiar. "Daughter of the moon, the time of sleeping is over. Awaken." The world exploded into light and pain and transformation. The voice echoed through chambers of Cassandra's mind she had not known existed. "Daughter of the moon." Each word carried weight like stone, like history, like destiny she had spent 8 years denying. Her knees buckled. The ground rushed up to meet her, but strong arms caught her before impact. Theon. She could smell cedar and cold mountain air, could feel the solid heat of him supporting her weight as the world fractured into pieces of light and shadow. "Cassandra." His voice came from very far away. "Stay with me. Look at me." But she could not. The thing inside her, the wolf she had kept chained and buried and hidden for so long, was rising, not gently, not gradually. It surged upward like a geyser breaching stone, like 8 years of suppression, demanding payment all at once. Her bones began to shift. The pain should have been unbearable. Every book she had read about first transformations described agony beyond comprehension. Bones breaking and reforming, muscles tearing and rebuilding, flesh reshaping into something both familiar and utterly alien. But this was not pain. This was release. Like finally exhaling after holding her breath for 8 years. Like shedding skin that had grown too tight. Like becoming what she had always been meant to be. Cassandra's back arched. Her mouth opened to scream, but what emerged was a howl that shook the trees and sent birds scattering from branches for miles around. The sound was not human, not entirely wolf either. It was something older. Something that predated the division between the two. The transformation took her under like a wave, and she surrendered to it. Her vision sharpened first. The gray dawn light became brilliant, every detail suddenly visible with painful clarity. She could see individual leaves on trees 100 yards distant, could count the links in the chainmail of warriors standing frozen in shock, could see the precise moment when Theon's eyes widened with something that looked almost like fear. Then her sense of smell exploded. She could identify every wolf in the camp by scent alone, could smell the blood still drying on weapons from the night's hunt, could track the path of deer that had passed through this clearing 3 days ago. The world became a tapestry of scent and information, overwhelming and intoxicating in equal measure. Her hearing sharpened last. She heard heartbeats, dozens of them, hundreds, each one distinct, heard whispered conversations 50 yards away, heard the rustle of something moving through underbrush half a mile into the forest, heard the voice of the White Death in her mind, patient and ancient and amused. "Breathe, young one. Your body knows what to do. Trust it." Cassandra's hands, no pause, now pressed against the earth. Claws dug into soil. She could feel the heartbeat of the ground beneath her, could sense the network of roots spreading through darkness, the movement of water through stone, the slow, patient pulse of the earth itself. She opened eyes she had not realized she had closed. The world looked different from 4 feet instead of 5.5. Lower perspective, wider field of vision, colors muted but movement sharp as broken glass. Theon knelt beside her, one hand extended, but not touching, giving her space to adjust. His face was carefully neutral, but she could smell the shock rolling off him in waves, could smell curiosity too. And beneath that, something warm and fierce that made her new wolf body want to move closer to press against him, to mark him with her scent. She pushed the impulse down. Barely. "Cassandra." Theon's voice was steady despite the chaos erupting around them. Warriors shouting, wolves shifting. The camp mobilizing for threat or celebration, no one quite certain which. "Can you hear me?" She tried to nod. Her head dipped forward in something approximating agreement. Speech felt impossible. Her tongue was all wrong, her throat shaped differently, her vocal cords designed for howls and growls rather than words. The white death Lunaris, she somehow knew its name, now moved closer. The massive creature lowered its head until its golden eyes were level with hers. Up close, she could see ancient scars beneath the pristine white fur. Could see wisdom in those eyes that made human lifespans seem like heartbeats. Your first shift. The voice in her mind was gentler now, almost proud. After 23 years of hiding, after 8 years of chains you placed on yourself, you did well to conceal your power for so long. But concealment time is over. Now comes the revealing. Cassandra wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Who are you, really? Why did the council want you to kill me? What am I? But her wolf throat could not form human words, could barely form coherent thoughts beyond the overwhelming flood of new sensations. Lunaris seemed to understand anyway. I am what your kind calls a guardian, ancient protector bound to certain bloodlines, certain powers. 200 years ago, the Council of Six performed blood magic to bind me, to use me as their weapon against threats. 3 nights ago, they invoked that binding and commanded me to kill the moon-blessed Omega in Silver Moonpack territory. The words settled into Cassandra's awareness like stones dropping into still water. The Council. Blood magic. Kill the moon-blessed. But blood magic is imperfect, Lunaris continued. It can compel the body, but not the soul. My body walked toward you intending murder. My soul chose protection instead. The binding is broken now, shattered the moment you transformed. I am free, and you, daughter of the moon, are awake. Around them, the camp had descended into controlled chaos. Warriors formed defensive perimeters, unsure whether the massive white beast was threat or ally. Healers rushed forward with supplies. Someone shouted for Elder Winifred. Someone else demanded to know what in the goddess's name was happening. Theon stood slowly, placing himself between Cassandra and the approaching warriors. Stand down, all of you. She is not a threat. Say, your majesty, she has shifted. One of the warriors, young and frightened, pointed his spear toward Cassandra. We do not know what she is. That Omega was supposed to be defective. She was never defective. Theon's voice cut through the objection like a blade through silk. She was hidden. There is a difference. He turned his head slightly, addressing Garrick without taking his eyes off the warriors. Clear a space. Get everyone back. Give her room to adjust. Garrick moved with swift efficiency, barking orders that warriors obeyed without question. Within moments, a wide circle had been cleared around Cassandra, Theon, and Lunaris, the 3 of them standing in the center of dawn, light, and confusion, while dozens of wolves watched with expressions ranging from awe to terror. Cassandra tried to stand. Her legs, 4 of them, now trembled with the effort. Everything felt wrong. Center of balance shifted, weight distributed differently. Muscles responding to commands she was not accustomed to giving. She managed to get her paws under her, managed to rise shakily to her feet. And that was when she caught her reflection in the basin of water near the tent entrance. Silver fur. Not gray, not white, but pure metallic silver that caught the dawn light and threw it back in scattered prisms. She was smaller than a full alpha wolf, perhaps 280 pounds compared to their 400, but her proportions were different. Leaner, built for speed rather than brute strength, and on her neck, just visible through the silver fur, a crescent moon mark gleamed like it had been branded into her very essence. The mark of the goddess, proof of bloodline, undeniable evidence of what she was. Moon-blessed, someone whispered from the crowd. The words spread like wildfire. She is moon-blessed. The bloodline returned. Theon crouched beside her again, moving slowly, keeping his body language non-threatening. Cassandra, I need you to try to shift back. I know it is difficult. I know your wolf wants to stay, but you need to return to human form so we can talk properly. Can you try? She wanted to, but her wolf body felt right in ways her human form never had. Felt powerful, felt free. The idea of returning to soft human flesh and blunt human senses seemed like imprisonment after tasting this. Lunaris nudged her gently with one massive paw. Shifting back is harder than shifting forward. Your wolf will resist, but you must learn control, young one. Must learn to walk between forms as easily as breathing. Close your eyes. Remember your human shape. Remember your human name. Remember everything you were before this moment. Then choose it. Cassandra closed her eyes. Remembered standing on 2 legs. Remembered hands instead of paws, skin instead of fur. Remembered the feeling of fabric against flesh, the taste of bread, the sound of her father's voice teaching her to read cloud patterns. She reached for her human form the way she might reach for a memory, grasped it, pulled it over herself like a cloak. The shift back was harder, faster. Her bones cracked and reformed with audible pops that made warriors wince. Her muscles tore and rebuilt. Her senses dulled back to human limitations, and the loss felt like going blind and deaf simultaneously. Then she was on her hands and knees in the dirt, gasping for breath, human again. Naked, she realized with distant embarrassment. Transformation had shredded her clothes. Theon was already moving, removing his cloak and wrapping it around her shoulders before anyone else could process what had happened. The fabric was warm from his body heat, smelled like him, and was large enough to cover her completely. "Get Elder Winifred," Theon ordered, "and someone bring proper clothes, now." Warriors scattered to obey. Cassandra tried to stand, failed, settled for sitting with the cloak clutched around her. Her whole body ached. Every muscle felt bruised. Her head swam with exhaustion in the aftermath of transformation. "That was your first shift," Theon said quietly. He sat beside her, close enough to offer support, but not touching, respecting her space. Most wolves describe their first time as the most painful experience of their lives. "You made it look almost easy." "It did not feel easy," Cassandra managed. Her voice came out hoarse, raw from the howl that had torn free during transformation. "It felt like dying and being reborn in the same moment." "That is exactly what it is." An elderly woman approached, moving with the careful precision of advanced age. She carried a leather bag that marked her as a healer. "The death of who you were, the birth of who you are becoming." Elder Winifred Ashwood had silver hair braided in the old style and eyes sharp as fresh forged steel. She knelt beside Cassandra with surprising grace. "Let me see you, child." Cassandra submitted to the examination. Winifred checked her eyes, her pulse, the alignment of bones that had just reformed. Her wrinkled hands were gentle but thorough, and she hummed occasionally in a way that suggested both approval and concern. "Remarkable," Winifred said finally. "Your first shift at 23 years old, and you managed the return transformation within minutes. Most wolves need hours, sometimes days, to shift back after their first time." She sat back on her heels and fixed Cassandra with a penetrating stare. "You have been hiding your wolf for years, have you not?" "Off-pressing it, chaining it down. There seemed little point in lying now." "Since I was 15. "Since your father died," Theon said. It was not a question. Cassandra looked at him sharply. "How did you know?" "Because I did research before coming here. Called in favors, requested records, investigated rumors. Your father was Nathaniel Graythorn, cartographer for Silver Moonpack. Brilliant man, skilled enough that neighboring territories offered substantial gold for his services." Theon's gaze held hers. "He died 8 years ago. The pack declared it an accident, a fall, but the healer's reports mentioned defensive wounds on his hands. Bruises consistent with fighting. Someone murdered your father and made it look like an accident." The words hung between them like drawn blades. Cassandra felt something cold and hard settle in her chest. "You know this. You have known this. Why did you not bring charges?" "Because I had no proof, only suspicions and a healer's notes that could be explained away. The Council of Six controls half the territories in the northern kingdoms. They have influence, gold, and enough loyal wolves to make accusations dangerous without ironclad evidence." Theon leaned forward slightly. "But I have been gathering that evidence for 3 years. Building a case, waiting for the right moment. And then I heard rumors that Silver Moonpack was sending Omegas into the Forbidden Forest as bait, that they had caged a defective girl for the Great Hunt. Understanding dawned cold and bright. You came here for me. I came here to investigate corruption. I found you." His voice softened. "And the moment I saw you, the moment I scented you, my wolf recognized something I have been searching for without knowing I was searching. You are my mate, Cassandra, the bond that cannot be denied or broken. The joining the moon goddess herself ordained." The words should have terrified her, should have felt like another cage, another form of ownership. But something in her chest responded to them, warm and certain, like a key turning in a lock she had not known existed. "I do not understand," she whispered. "I am nobody. I was raised as a servant, told I was broken. How can I possibly be your mate?" "Because the goddess does not make mistakes." Elder Winifred's voice was firm. "And because you are not nobody, child. You are moon-blessed, the bloodline hunted to extinction 200 years ago, the original children of the goddess who walked the earth before packs divided into kingdoms." Cassandra shook her head weakly. "That is impossible. My parents were common wolves. My father was a cartographer. My mother..." She stopped, remembering her mother's face the last time they had spoken. Remembering fear in her mother's eyes that had nothing to do with shame. "Your mother is not what she appears," Winifred said gently. "But that is a conversation for later, when you are stronger. For now, you need rest. Your body has undergone tremendous trauma. Come. Two female warriors had arrived with a clothes simple but clean size for someone Cassandra's height. They helped her stand, helped her dress, while Theon turned away to give her privacy. Her hands shook so badly she could barely manage the laces. When she was decent, Theon faced her again. I am moving you to the secured tent. No one enters without my explicit permission. Garrick will stand guard. You need to sleep to let your body recover. When you wake, we will talk properly. About what you are. About what I suspect. About the 3 weeks we have before the council summit. And 3 weeks. Cassandra's exhausted brain struggled to process. What happens in 3 weeks? The Council of Six convenes at the capital. All 12 territorial alphas attend. It is the one time when the corrupted cannot hide behind distance and loyal pacts. The one time when evidence can be presented before witnesses who cannot be silenced. Theon's expression hardened. The one time when we can destroy them completely. The word escaped before Cassandra could stop it. Theon stepped close enough that she could feel his body heat through her borrowed clothes. I do not offer rescue, Cassandra. I do not offer to save you and keep you like some rescued pet. I offer partnership, an alliance between equals working toward the same goal. Equals, she almost laughed. You are the Alpha King. I am a moon-blessed, descended from the goddess herself, carrying a bloodline that predates my crown by 1,000 years. Possessing power that could reshape the northern kingdoms if properly wielded. His hand came up slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she did not, he cupped her face with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so dangerous. Do not diminish yourself because others have spent your whole life doing it for you. I see what you are, what you could become. And I am asking, not commanding, will you work with me? Will you help me take down the corruption that murdered your father and bound your guardian and tried to kill you before you could awaken? Cassandra searched his face for signs of manipulation of the dominance games alphas played. She found only sincerity, only conviction, only the same cold fury she had been carrying in her chest for 8 years. 3 weeks, she said slowly. 3 weeks to gather evidence, to build alliances, to prepare for war. 3 weeks, Theon confirmed. And after, if we succeed, if we destroy the council, then we rebuild, create something better, something where power is earned rather than inherited, where Omegas are not sold as slaves, where a cartographer's daughter can grow up without hiding who she is. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone. Together, as partners, as equals, as mates. He did not say it, but the word hung between them anyway, heavy with implication. Cassandra knew she should refuse, should run the way she had planned, should not trust this king who moved like violence and looked at her like she mattered. But 8 years of planning had not included finding an ally. 8 years of preparation had not prepared her for someone offering partnership instead of ownership. Yes, she heard herself say, I will work with you, but I have conditions. Theon's expression flickered with something that might have been respect. Name them. I am not your possession. I am not your pet. I make my own choices, follow my own conscience. If I disagree with you, I say so, publicly if necessary. Agreed. I want access to your intelligence, everything you have gathered on the council. Every piece of evidence, every witness, name every suspicion. No secrets between partners. Agreed. And she hesitated, then pushed forward. And you train me, not just in combat, in politics, in navigating court, in understanding the games these alphas play. I have been kept ignorant my whole life. That ends now. Theon smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. Agreed. Anything else? One more thing. Cassandra met his gaze squarely. If this mate bond is real, if the goddess truly chose us for each other, then it develops naturally. No claims, no public declarations. Not until I am ready. Not until I understand what it means to be moon-blessed and what it means to be your equal. The bond waits until I say otherwise. For a moment, she thought he might refuse. Mate bonds were sacred after all. Refusing to acknowledge one was almost unheard of. But Theon simply nodded once, sharp and decisive. The bond waits until you are ready. You have my word as king and as alpha. I will not push. I will not claim. I will not use the bond to manipulate or control. He extended his hand formally, like sealing a contract. Partners, equals, working toward justice. Do we have an accord? Cassandra looked at his offered hand, calloused from weapons, scarred from battles, strong enough to break bone, gentle enough to catch her when she fell. She placed her hand in his. We have an accord. They shook once firm and formal, and Cassandra felt something settle into place inside her chest. Not the mate bond that remained carefully unacknowledged waiting like Theon had promised, but something else. Alliance, purpose, the first genuine partnership she had ever known. Elder Winifred cleared her throat. Touching as this is, the girl needs rest before she collapses. Come, child, your tent awaits. Cassandra let herself be guided away. She looked back once to see Theon still standing where she had left him, watching her with an expression she could not quite read. Lunaris had moved to stand beside him, the massive white beast dwarfing even the Alpha King, and together they looked like something from ancient legend. Power and protection, dominance and guardianship. The tent Winifred led her to was larger than the first, more centrally located, with 2 guards stationed outside. Garrick stood among them, his scarred face impassive. He nodded once as she passed. An acknowledgement. An alliance she did not yet understand but sensed was genuine. Inside, the space was warm and comfortable. Furs piled high on the bedroll, a basin of clean water, food waiting, and something else, a leather-bound journal and writing implements. For your thoughts, Winifred said, noticing where Cassandra's gaze had landed. Your father was a mapmaker. He understood the importance of recording truth. Perhaps you inherited that understanding along with his skill. You knew my father. Met him twice. Brilliant man, cautious. He came to the capital 15 years ago seeking an audience with the old king. Wanted to report suspicions about council corruption. Was turned away by advisors who we later learned were in the council's pay. Winifred's expression tightened. He returned to Silver Moonpack and died 3 years later. I have always wondered what he might have accomplished had someone listened. Cassandra touched the journal with trembling fingers. The King Theon, he said, my mother is not what she appears. What did he mean? That is a question for another day when you are rested. Winifred moved toward the tent entrance. Sleep, child. Your body needs time to heal from transformation. Your mind needs time to process what you have become. The 3 weeks ahead will be difficult. Use this day to recover. Wait, Cassandra caught the old healer's arm. Why are you helping me? You do not know me. You have no reason to trust that I am what everyone claims. Winifred smiled, and it transformed her weathered face into something almost young. I am helping you because 50 years ago, I met the last moon blessed. She was old, then dying, but she made me promise something. She said the bloodline would return, that a silver wolf would rise when the corruption had grown unbearable, that I would know her by the mark of the crescent moon and the guardian who chose protection over compulsion. The old healer squeezed Cassandra's hand gently. I made a promise 50 years ago to help the moon blessed when she returned. I am simply keeping my word. Then she was gone, leaving Cassandra alone with her thoughts and the journal that smelled faintly of ink and possibility. Cassandra sat on the bedroll and opened the journal to the first page. Her hands shook as she lifted the quill. But her father had taught her to read and write when most Omegas were kept illiterate. Had taught her that recording truth was the first step toward changing it. She began to write. Day 1 of awakening. I am Cassandra Graythorn, 23 years old, Omega of Silver Moonpack. I am moon blessed, though I do not yet understand what that means. My wolf is silver. My guardian is Lunaris. My ally is Alpha King Theon Blackwood. My enemy is the Council of 6 who murdered my father and tried to murder me. I have 3 weeks to learn what I am to gather evidence against corruption and to prepare for war. I have 3 weeks to transform from a caged Omega into something strong enough to tear down an empire. 3 weeks, 21 days, starting now. She set down the quill and lay back on the furs. Exhaustion crashed over her like a physical weight. Her last conscious thought before sleep claimed her was of burning gold watching her like she was worth saving. Like she was worth 100 gold crowns and a king's partnership. Like she might actually survive the 3 weeks ahead. Outside the tent, dawn fully broke over the northern territories. Inside, Cassandra Graythorn slept the dreamless sleep of the newly transformed, while her wolf rested patient as stone, and her guardian stood watch against threats both known and still approaching. The blood moon had set, but something far more dangerous had risen to take its place. Cassandra woke to darkness and the sound of rain drumming against canvas. For 3 heartbeats, she forgot where she was, forgot the transformation, forgot the white guardian and the Alpha King and the impossible claim that she was moon-blessed. Then her body reminded her. Every muscle ached with the deep bone weariness that came from fundamental change. Her joints felt loose, as if someone had disassembled her skeleton and put it back together with slightly different tolerances. Her senses were sharper than they had been before the shift. Not wolf-sharp, but heightened enough that she could smell the rain-wet canvas, the burning pine from campfires outside, the distinct sense of a dozen different wolves passing near her tent. She sat up slowly, testing her body's responses. The furs fell away. Someone had covered her while she slept. The tent was warm despite the storm outside, warmed by a brazier that burned with coals that must have been tended while she was unconscious. How long had she slept? Cassandra reached for the journal she had started writing in. The ink had dried on her first entry, but beside it lay a note in different handwriting, angular, precise, unmistakably masculine. You slept for 2 days. Your body needed the rest. Food and water have been left. Eat before you do anything else. When you are ready, send for me through Garrick. We have much to discuss. 2 days. She had lost 2 days of the 3 weeks they had to prepare. Panic fluttered in her chest before logic reasserted itself. She had needed the rest. Transformation took a toll that could not be rushed or ignored. Her father had taught her that healing required patience, that wounded things pushed too hard broke completely. Food came first, even though her stomach cramped with emptiness. Bread and cheese and dried meat washed down with water that tasted faintly of minerals and spring melt. She ate slowly, methodically, rebuilding strength bite by bite. When she had finished, she stood and tested her balance. Better, the wrongness in her joints had faded to a dull ache. She could move without feeling like her body belonged to someone else. She dressed in the clothes that had been left, sturdy traveling garments in dark gray and forest green, sized to fit her properly, rather than hanging loose like borrowed charity. Someone had measured her while she slept, or perhaps Elder Winifred had simply guessed with the accuracy that came from 70 years of tending to bodies. Cassandra stepped to the tent entrance and pulled back the flap. Rain fell in steady sheets, turning the camp into a landscape of mud and moving shadows. The guards stationed outside turned immediately. One was Garrick. Up close in daylight, diluted by storm, she could see the network of scars that crossed his face more clearly. 3 parallel marks that could only have come from claws. A puckered burn on his jaw. A white line through his left eyebrow that spoke of a blade coming dangerously close to taking his eye. You are awake, he said. Statement, not question. I need to speak with the king. Garrick nodded once and turned to the other guard. Fetch his majesty. Tell him the moon blessed is ready. The guard departed at a run. Cassandra watched him go, then looked at Garrick directly. You are not Silver Moon Pack, are you? You have been pretending, playing a role. Something that might have been approval flickered in the scarred beta's eyes. I have been undercover in Silver Moon territory for 3 years, gathering evidence, documenting corruption, waiting for the right moment. He paused. Your father knew what I was. Helped me, in fact. Provided maps that showed council supply routes, Omega trafficking paths. He died before he could finish the work. The words hit like stones. He knew you. He trusted you. He did, and I failed him. Failed to protect him when the council learned he was helping me. Garrick's expression remained neutral, but pain edged his voice. I do not ask forgiveness, but I offer you what your father wanted me to gather. 3 years of documentation. Ledgers, witness names, evidence that can destroy them. Cassandra studied him, saw genuine regret beneath the careful mask, saw the weight of failure carried like scars too deep to show on skin. You are loyal to Theon. I am loyal to justice. The king simply happens to serve the same master. Before Cassandra could respond, Theon appeared through the rain, moving with the easy confidence of someone unbothered by weather or mud. He wore black as always, his dark hair plastered to his skull by rain, but those burning eyes remained bright as embers. Walk with me, he said without preamble. There are things you need to see. Cassandra pulled a cloak from inside the tent and followed him into the storm. The rain soaked through within moments, but she found she did not mind. After 2 days confined, even rain-drenched air tasted like freedom. Theon led her through the camp to a tent larger than the others, guarded by 4 warriors instead of 2. Inside, the space had been transformed into what could only be called a war room. Maps covered every available surface. Not crude sketches, but detailed cartographic work that showed the northern territories, with a precision that made Cassandra's breath catch. These were her father's maps. She recognized his handwriting in the margin notes, his particular style of marking elevation and water sources. Where did you get these? Her voice came out hoarse. Your father sent them to me 3 months before he died. Around the table, Theon moved, stopping at the largest map showing all 12 territories. 6 were marked in red. He suspected I would need them. Suspected that someone would eventually have to move against the council, and that detailed intelligence would mean the difference between success and failure. Cassandra traced her father's notations with trembling fingers. Here a note about unusual traffic along a mountain pass. There an observation about Omega disappearances correlating with the council member visits. Everywhere the careful documentation of a man who understood that truth recorded became truth that could not be denied. He was building a case, she said slowly, even before he met Garrick. He was mapping the corruption. He was brilliant and careful and not careful enough. Elder Winifred entered the tent, shaking rain from her cloak. The council discovered what he was doing. They could not allow him to continue. So they arranged an accident that was murder, poorly disguised. The old healer moved to a table where scrolls lay stacked and bound with ribbon. I have been tracking Omega disappearances for 40 years. Before Theon's father died, before the current council consolidated power. I watched it grow from isolated incidents to systematic trafficking. She unrolled one scroll revealing names and dates written in careful script. 237 Omegas taken from their packs over 20 years, sold to labor camps in distant territories, worked until they died. All of it generating approximately 4,000 gold crowns annually for the Council of Six. Cassandra stared at the numbers. 237 lives reduced to data points. 4,000 gold crowns purchased with suffering. Why did no one stop them? Because they controlled half the territories. Because they had loyal packs willing to enforce their will. Because anyone who tried to expose them died in convenient accidents. Theon's voice was cold as Winterstone. My father tried. He called for a full investigation 15 years ago. 3 days later, he was dead. Poisoned by wine served at his own table by advisors we later discovered were council allies. Cassandra turned to stare at him. They murdered your father. They murdered the king. My father. The one obstacle with enough authority to bring them down. Theon's jaw tightened. I was 19, newly crowned, surrounded by advisors I could not trust. I spent the next 12 years consolidating power, removing traitors, building a network of loyal wolves who could not be bought or threatened. I have been preparing for this confrontation since I was old enough to understand what killed him. Those scars told stories and Cassandra read every one. Assassination attempts, betrayals, years spent sleeping with weapons within reach. The engagement to Seraphina Ashford, her father is counsel. Aldrich Ironpaw, the architect of the entire trafficking operation. Theon moved to another map, this one showing packed territories with family connections marked in different colors. My father arranged the engagement 2 months before he died. I have never understood why he despised the council, but the contract was signed, sealed, witnessed by the Alliance Arbiter. Breaking it without cause would trigger political consequences I could not afford. Not until I had proof of Aldrich's crimes. So you have been waiting. Cassandra traced the connections on the map. 6 council territories all linked by marriage or blood to the Ironpaw line. Gathering evidence, building alliances, preparing for the moment when you could destroy them all at once. 3 years of preparation, 3 years of Garrick undercover, 3 years of Winifred documenting disappearances, 3 years of tracking gold mapping routes, identifying witnesses willing to testify. Theon looked at her directly. And then you appeared. Moonblessed, the bloodline the council has been trying to eliminate for 2 centuries because it threatens their entire system of control. Winifred moved closer to Cassandra. Sit, child. It is time you understood what you are. Cassandra sat. Her legs felt unsteady, whether from 2 days of sleep or the weight of revelation she could not say. The old healer settled across from her. 200 years ago, before the territories divided into 12 separate packs, there was one people, one pack. The Moonblessed ruled not through dominance or conquest, but through a power granted directly by the goddess herself. They could command any wolf, could sense truth from lies, could heal wounds with focused thought, could communicate across vast distances through the bond of shared blood. They were too powerful, Theon added quietly. Other alphas feared them, envied them, conspired against them. The massacre took 3 months. Winifred continued, her voice heavy with old grief. Coordinated attacks across the kingdom. Poison during mating ceremonies when the Moonblessed were most vulnerable. Ambushes during childbirth. Systematic slaughter of an entire bloodline carried out by the ancestors of the same wolves who now sit on the Council of Six. Cassandra's hands clenched into fists. They murdered children. They murdered anyone who carried the Silver Wolf. The last known Moonblessed died in childbirth 200 years ago. Her daughter was taken by loyalists and hidden away, raised in secret. Her children married into common packs, diluting the bloodline, concealing the power. Winifred's weathered hand covered Cassandra's. But bloodlines like yours do not dilute. They sleep. They wait. And when the need is great enough, when corruption has grown unbearable, they wake. My father knew. The certainty settled into Cassandra's bones. He knew what I was. That is why he taught me to hide. Your father was a protector, one of the last descendants of the loyalists who saved that infant 200 years ago. His family has been guarding the dormant bloodline for generations, waiting for it to manifest. Winifred pulled a small wooden box from her robes and opened it. Inside lay a silver pendant, crescent moon shape etched with symbols Cassandra did not recognize. This belonged to the last moon blessed. She gave it to my grandmother with instructions to return it when the bloodline woke. I give it to you now. Cassandra took the pendant with shaking hands. The metal was warm despite having been stored in a box. The moment her skin touched it, power thrummed through her veins like lightning seeking ground. Images flashed behind her eyes, women with silver fur and crescent marks standing against darkness, fighting corruption, dying for justice they would never see completed. What about my mother? The question tore free before Cassandra could stop it. Theon said she is not what she appears. Silence fell heavy as stone. Theon and Winifred exchanged glances, some wordless communication passing between them. Finally, Theon spoke. Your mother is Alara Greythorn, formerly Alara Ravenscar, daughter of a minor pack in the Southern Territories. He pulled a scroll from the pile and unrolled it. This is a contract, signed 24 years ago, between Alara Ravenscar and council member Aldrich Ironpaw. Cassandra's stomach turned to ice. What kind of contract? A payment agreement. Aldrich paid your mother 500 gold crowns in exchange for information about your father's activities. Paid her another 200 gold over 8 years to keep your location hidden, but report on your development. And promised her a final payment of 200 gold if she could arrange for you to be killed during a great hunt. The words made no sense. Could not make sense. My mother sold me. Your mother is weak and greedy and desperate. Winifred's voice held more pity than condemnation. She married your father for love, but love does not buy fine things or status. When Aldrich approached her with gold, she took it. When he demanded information, she gave it. When he ordered your death, she arranged for you to be placed in that cage. Winifred's voice was quiet. Your mother is the one who suggested you to Beta Garrick for the sacrifice. She told Alpha Raymond you had been acting strangely, that you might be dangerous if left unchecked. She placed you in that cage with her own hands, child. Cassandra could not breathe, could not think past the roaring in her ears. She put me in the cage. She sent me to die. She did. Theon's voice was gentle despite the brutal truth. But she also hesitated, delayed. We believe she was supposed to poison you 3 months ago, when Aldrich learned your wolf was beginning to wake. Instead, she stalled, made excuses, claimed you were too well watched. That hesitation gave us time to learn about the Great Hunt, time for me to arrive, time for you to survive. Hesitation is not redemption. Cassandra's hands shook with rage so pure it felt like ice in her veins. She took gold to betray her mate, took gold to sell her daughter. That is not hesitation. That is evil. It is weakness. Winifred's correction was firm but not unkind. There is a difference. Your mother is not strong enough to resist temptation, not brave enough to choose right over comfort. But she is not the true evil here. The council is, the system that creates the temptation. The corruption that turns mothers against daughters for gold does not matter. Cassandra stood abruptly. She chose. That is all that matters. Theon moved to block her path to the door. Not threatening, simply present. Where are you going? I do not know. Away. I need. She pressed her hands against her face, felt the echo of transformation still singing through her bones. I need to not be here. Not be listening to how my own mother tried to have me killed for gold. Then run. Theon stepped aside. Shift and run. Let your wolf burn off the rage before it consumes you. But take Lunaris with you and stay within 2 miles of camp. We do not know if the council has sent more hunters. Cassandra wanted to argue, wanted to reject the command disguised as permission. But her wolf was clawing at her insides, demanding release, needing the freedom of movement to process what her human mind could not. She stripped without ceremony, without caring that Theon and Winifred were present. Modesty meant nothing in the face of transformation. The shift came easier, this time her body remembering the path, the wolf rising smooth as water, instead of bursting free like a geyser. 4 paws on the ground, silver fur catching the light, the scent of rain and mud and dozens of wolves suddenly sharp and overwhelming. She bolted from the tent before anyone could speak. Lunaris appeared beside her, as if summoned, perhaps was summoned. Perhaps the bond between guardian and protected worked both ways, and they ran together into the storm. 2 miles became 4. 4 became 6. Cassandra ran until her muscles screamed, until her lungs burned, until the rage had transformed into something cleaner. Grief, maybe? Or determination? Or the cold fury that came from understanding exactly what she was fighting against. She stopped finally at a creek swollen with rainwater, panting, her silver fur plastered dark with mud and rain. Lunaris settled beside her, the massive white beast somehow remaining pristine despite the storm. Your mother's betrayal wounds you. The guardian's voice in her mind was patient, understanding. This is natural, expected. The first cut of family treachery always runs deepest. Cassandra shifted back to human form. The cold rain against bare skin was shocking but clarifying. She sold me for gold, like I was livestock. She did, and that truth will never stop hurting. Lunaris lowered her great head until golden eyes were level with Cassandra's. But you cannot let that pain become poison. Cannot let her weakness make you doubt your own strength. Your mother chose gold over honor. That choice defines her, not you. How do I face her when I see her again? How do I not? Cassandra's hands clenched into fists. I want to hurt her. Want to make her feel what she made me feel. Is that wrong? It is human, but you are more than human now. You are moon-blessed. Your power comes from the goddess who judges with perfect clarity, who sees corruption and burns it away, who demands justice but tempers it with mercy. Lunaris's voice gentled. Your mother will face consequences. The contract Theon found is evidence. She will testify against the council whether she wishes to or not. She will watch everything she sold you for be taken away. That is justice. If you kill her in rage, that is merely revenge. Justice, Cassandra laughed, but the sound was hollow. What justice is there for a daughter sold by her mother? The justice of becoming everything they tried to prevent you from being, of taking the power they feared and using it to destroy the system that made their crimes possible, of standing in front of the Council of Six and watching them kneel before the bloodline they tried to exterminate. Lunaris's golden eyes blazed. Your mother's betrayal gave you rage. Transform that rage into revolution. The words settled into Cassandra's chest like coals banking for slow burn. Revolution, not revenge, not murder. The complete dismantling of a corrupt system. She stood. The rain had gentled to mist. Above, clouds were breaking apart to reveal patches of early stars. How much time has passed? 3 hours since you left camp. 3 hours of running. 3 hours of burning rage into something useful. Cassandra felt her wolf settle, satisfied with the exertion, ready to rest. She shifted one more time, letting the transformation wash through her, and they ran back toward camp at an easier pace. By the time the campfires came into view, her human mind had reasserted itself over wolf instinct, had processed Winifred's history and Theon's revelations and her mother's unforgivable betrayal, had begun to plan. Garrick met her at the perimeter with a cloak. She shifted back, dressed quickly, and followed him to Theon's war tent without needing to ask. The king stood where she had left him, studying maps with an intensity that suggested he had not moved in hours. He looked up when she entered. Better, no, but functional. Cassandra moved to stand across the map table from him. You said 3 weeks. We have lost 2 days. That leaves 19 days to prepare. I need to know everything, every piece of evidence, every witness name, every weakness in the council's power structure. I need to understand pack politics, alliance law, and how to navigate a court I have never seen. I need combat training because I will not walk into that summit helpless. Theon's expression shifted, approval mixed with something darker, something that looked almost like pride. You want to fight? I want to destroy them, all of them, for my father, for the 237 Omegas trafficked, for every child sold by desperate mothers, for every life ruined by their corruption. Cassandra placed both hands flat on the map covering the 6 red territories. You offered partnership. You offered to work with me as equals. I am accepting that offer with full understanding of what it means. Train me. Teach me. Give me the weapons I need to tear down an empire. It will not be easy, Theon's voice held warning. The council has spent 200 years consolidating power. They have loyal packs, trained warriors, enough gold to buy armies. Taking them down will require more than evidence. It will require political maneuvering, strategic alliances, very likely actual combat. And if we fail, Cassandra asked quietly. Theon's expression went cold. If we fail, the council will hunt every moon-blessed descendant they can find. They will burn your bloodline from existence this time, completely. There will be no third awakening. The weight of those words settled between them. Not just her life at stake, not just Theon's crown. The survival of an entire bloodline rested on 19 days of preparation. Then teach me politics, build the alliances, prepare for combat. Cassandra met those burning eyes without flinching. I spent 8 years hiding, 8 years pretending to be weak, 8 years waiting for someone else to fix what was broken. That ends now. I'm done waiting, I am done hiding, and I am done being weak. Theon studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was a warrior's smile, all sharp edges and dangerous promise. Then we begin tonight. Winifred will teach you alliance law and court protocol. Garrick will train you in combat. I will teach you everything I know about pack politics and how to identify weakness in power structures. He moved around the table until he stood directly in front of her, close enough that she could smell frost and evergreens sharp as December, close enough to see silver flecks in his eyes. 19 days to transform from a caged Omega into someone strong enough to stand before the council and watch them fall. 19 days to master skills that most wolves spend lifetimes learning. 19 days until we either succeed completely or fail catastrophically. 19 days, Cassandra repeated. Then we burn their empire to ash and rebuild something better from the ruins. Partners, Theon said, extending his hand. Equals, Cassandra replied, taking it. Their handshake was firm, formal, a contract sealed without witnesses but binding nonetheless. And when Cassandra felt the faint pulse of the mate bond stir at the contact, felt Theon's wolf recognize hers across the small distance between them, she did not pull away. Not yet. The bond could wait. Justice could not. Outside the tent, the storm had passed completely. Stars emerged brilliant and cold above the northern territories. And in a tent warmed by braziers and determination, Cassandra Graythorn began her education in revolution. The first lesson, how to read a contract and identify the lies buried in legal language. The second lesson, 17 ways to kill an alpha with silver and cunning. The third lesson, how to stand before power without flinching, without submitting, without surrendering an inch of ground. She absorbed it all like dry earth absorbing rain. And when Winifred finally called a halt near midnight, when Garrick declared she had learned enough combat theory for one day, when Theon suggested rest would serve better than exhaustion, Cassandra returned to her tent and wrote in her journal with hands that no longer shook. Day 3, 19 days remain. I know what I am now. Moon-blessed, last of a bloodline hunted to extinction, daughter of a murdered protector and a mother who sold me for gold. I know what they fear. I know why they tried to kill me. And I know exactly how I am going to destroy them. Not with rage, not with revenge, with revolution, with evidence and witnesses and the complete dismantling of 200 years of corruption. My father gave me maps. Theon gave me partnership. Lunaris gave me perspective. I give myself this promise. In 19 days, the Council of Six will kneel before the bloodline they tried to exterminate, and then they will burn. She set down the quill and moved to extinguish the lamp. But before she could, urgent voices erupted outside. Boots splashing through mud, a horse arriving at speed. Cassandra stepped to the tent entrance as Garrick appeared rain-drenched, his scarred face grim. Messenger from the Eastern Territories. He addressed Theon, who had materialized from the war tent, rain already darkening his shoulders. Lady Seraphina Ashford has departed her father's lands. 100 warriors. They will arrive in 4 days. Theon's jaw tightened. 4 days. Cassandra felt her wolf stir beneath her skin. 4 days until she faced the woman her mate had been promised to. 4 days until the first real test of the partnership they had just sealed. 4 days until the revolution truly began. She met Theon's gaze across the rain-swept camp, and something passed between them. Understanding, determination. The knowledge that everything they had just agreed to would be tested far sooner than either had anticipated. 4 days, Cassandra said quietly. Then let us use them well. Theon nodded once, sharp and decisive. Gather in the war tent at first light. All of you. We have much work to do and very little time to do it. He turned and disappeared back into the storm, leaving Cassandra standing in the rain with her wolf pacing restless circles inside her chest, and the weight of 19 days pressing down like a promise and a threat in equal measure. She returned to her tent, to her journal, to the record of truth her father had taught her to keep. Added one final line before sleep claimed her. Seraphina arrives in 4 days. The first battle of this war will not be fought with claws and teeth, but with words and alliances, and the careful navigation of pack politics I am only beginning to understand. But I will learn, I will adapt, and I will win. Because failure means extinction, and I did not survive 8 years of hiding to dominate the opening moves of this game. The moon-blessed has awakened, the reckoning has begun, and in 4 days the world will start to understand what that truly means. Outside, the storm renewed its fury, rain hammering against canvas like applause, or warning, Cassandra could not tell which. Inside, she slept the deep sleep of someone who had finally found their purpose, their power, and their war. Her wolf rested easy. Her guardian stood watch. And 19 days stretched ahead like a path through fire that she would walk without hesitation. The revolution was coming.